you're tuned into the RURBANIVE Podcast, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of the circular bioeconomy. Ever wondered what happens when waste becomes a resource? Today's episode is all about turning challenges into possibilities, and we have Christine Bertl from alchemia-nova here to break it all down for us. Welcome to the podcast, Christine.
Oh, hi, Martina. I'm excited to be here.
So, in which part of RURBANIVE does alchemia-nova contribute?
So we contribute to circular bioeconomy as your introduction already claimed, and you pointed out exactly that we are tackling waste products and turn it into a possible with innovative and sustainable input. And our focus region is Vienna as the city part and Lower Austria as the rural part. And what is also really interesting about RURBANIVE and our project here that we have amazing partners like Biobase, which we collaborate really closely to also enhance our promotion of circular bioeconomy.
Why is developing a circular bioeconomy crucial for both rural and urban regions?
So, circular bioeconomy on its own is really fascinating because it has so much possibilities to give more value to urban and rural areas. And how is this approach possible? Thinking of cities, they are most likely resource sinks. So a lot of resources are coming in and cities are not giving back. And most likely those resources come from rural areas. So they lack those resources. And to even make it worse, the economic system is then maybe also not that established because they don't have the resources anymore and they could have to buy and kind of thing like that. And on the other hand, the cities are overloaded with waste products that they cannot use as a valuable product. And this is something super interesting. We want to dive in here more and make it also approachable and easy to attempt. So circular bioeconomy strategies can be really attractive for new jobs and opportunities that the rural area is more attractive for completely new ideas in synergy with the city.
That actually makes a lot of sense. What are some common misconceptions about bioeconomy that you often encounter?
So, speaking of bioeconomy, a lot of people are just connected with agricultural parts and overlook the theme of urban waste or food waste on a daily basis. Like we produce every day so much different waste and waste materials that are targeted as waste, but actually it's a really interesting resource you can work on, and it has a lot of value and a lot of overlooked potential. So this is a big misconception, the labeling of waste, because this was really bad for something that could be so much more. And so excited that RURBANIVE gives us the chance to show this in our region and also to elaborate it and show it to our other partners with the project, and we may even exploit the ideas. Yeah, and of course, a lot of people think it's not scalable or not easy to attempt to do those changes, but it just needs a little bit outside the box thinking. And of course, every innovation is kind of a challenging beginning because we most likely think about innovative ideas here, even though they could be super basic. But if we start to rethink and start this approach of just being more open-minded about what we have and that we value those things, it can be really, really positive opportunity for our future.
Since you mentioned your region, Lower Austria is the focus of the co-creation lab. What makes it an ideal region for circular economy innovation?
So first of all, the proximity to Vienna is amazing. Vienna is surrounded by Lower Austria, So we can have automatically a perfect synergy because it's in the heart of Lower Austria. And then Lower Austria has an amazing agricultural part, and they are really proud of it. And me speaking also from Lower Austria, I was raised there. We have, for example, our famous apricots or our famous wine products. But what we don't see is that maybe apricot kernels are just based and not used. And they could be an amazing resource for things for city. Or the same thing with our wine products. So there is also from the grapes kernels or the skin with some amazing potential. And those products are in massive amounts also available. And additionally, we have also tradition in baking and those really easy approachable examples. And using bread sensitive examples is something I think that could do something with society and also do something of the rethinking process, and makes Lower Austria as a perfect example because we're proud of our products, and if we enhance our mindset, we also don't want those products to be wasted, more likely to be used.
Listen. And how do you engage local communities and businesses in these initiatives, ensuring that they benefit directly?
Yeah, that's a really good question because that could be tricky. Of course, we always think it's so easy to approach them, but it can be a challenge, especially if people do not see the need to change something. And within the project, we have amazing tools that we can approach our people, so the Lower Austria and Viennese people, by co-creation workshops. And to make those cooperation workshops more approachable, we also think about creative methods like brainstorming together or doing like these graphic recordings that we present something and then you can see it simultaneously the presented information as a picture, and also bring it back home and tell about the outcome in a more visual way. Or we also love the idea of the examplification, this immersiveness that you bring innovative tools and you can reach more stakeholders like this, because we have of course multi-stakeholder approach and focus groups, expert interviews to fill up gaps on data research and stuff like that. But we should not overlook the broad society and people are interested in approaches like our cycle bioeconomy approach. So yeah, things like creative things will enhance. And what we also did, and I really like the cooperation with Biobase here, that we also did dissemination already really successfully on a festival, for example, reaching to young entrepreneurs and telling them about easy approaches in their direct environment. And they were really amazed. And I think he's outside the box thinking also how to reach people, and on the other side teaching them, and also targeting experts directly is the way we approach now. And of course we are always open for new ideas. And what we also did, and I love active dissemination and being in touch with people and our society, because teaching something or kind of giving knowledge that you're so passionate about is something so beautiful. And what I'm really proud is also that we got the chance to publish at the really well-known Circular Bioeconomy magazine. So also this strategy of publishing in very known magazines is a good idea to have a little bit of more visual appearance. And working with social media even though also it's not so easy to have a huge crowd in social media, but still it's a good tool, and people like to interact with you.
So you're actually finding more approachable ways to get to the target audience,
Yes.
different type of stakeholders. So biomass is at the core of circular economy solutions. How would you explain that in simple terms?
Yeah, so biomass is kind of a nature-based organic material. So it can be plants, humans, animals, fungi, and we focus here on secondary biomass. So there is maybe a little bit of it could be hard to distinguish between primary, secondary biomass, all those difficult words, but thinking of my approach of those secondary biomasses that are most likely labeled as waste, they are kind of the byproduct or leftover product of an original one. So we can also have the simple example of our apricot. So the apricot is the primary product, and then the secondary would be the kernel or the skin. It's something that might end up in the trash or is not used for its potential.
What are some common sources of biomass that people might not realize that can be repurposed?
Overall, those secondary biomasses I mentioned, like the kernel of the apricot, or speaking of more sensitive things like oat breads or kind of any leftovers from fruits. Also the vegetable oil used for frying your food. It can be actually everything that's organic and that has the possibility to give back nutrition. And that's the beauty about biomass. It has this ability to be in a closed circle, in a closed loop system, as we approach it in a circular bioeconomy strategy.
What's an example of an innovation pathway that could transform how we use residual biomass?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question because I love innovation pathways and there's so many you can actually discover. The thing is, you also have to focus on some down-to-earth examples that you don't lose your audience talking too scientifically. So I will also start to introduce you to some simple ones in the beginning. So we can start by our bread. So my bread got stale. And if this bread is lucky, it doesn't end in the trash like most of the breads, unfortunately, as statistics say, are actually trashed out of all foods. And so I'm a lucky bread now. And if I'm super lucky, I end up as an animal feed or in a biogas plant as energy. But speaking of the approach of the R strategies, like this rethink, reduce, it's actually on the lowest level how we now use those spreads. So we can enhance this by refusing the waste in the beginning, okay, but we produce this. So I'm here already, I have the right now to survive and I want that something is done with me. So we could also rethink how we use me, and I have an amazing property of all those starchy compounds, so it's a glucose. We have a lot of sugars in this bread that could be used and fermented. So a beauty of bread would be to be reborn in beer, for example, because that's also a possibility and it's kind of easy to achieve as well. So you need here a collaboration, a synergy with a brewery. And this is also something maybe we have to highlight here, that a lot of synergies are really important to establish and to actually start those processes of circular bioeconomy, and also why this multi-stakeholder approach is so important. Because without synergies, without a lot of people knowing about the processes, it will never be enabled. So yeah, I'm a lucky bird being a beer.
That's a very beautiful way to think the afterlife of food waste.
Yes, and what could be also kind of, we wanted to talk about a really innovative way. There's even a startup talking about textiles out of old breads. So there are really interesting practices all around the world, and we also try to collect them and show people. But in the beginning, to something really down to earth, that you can get really hungry for new ideas. And one example targeted to Lower Austria, as I mentioned, we are really, really proud of our apricots because they are the best in the world, of course. And there's also a really nice startup coming up with cheeses out of the kernels of the apricots. And this is also an outside of the box thinking, because the kernels are most likely to be wasted, or maybe it's a scent for marzipan made out of these kernels, but super niche, not really established. And showing people, look at this example, it's already in your region, but of course there is so much more potential, and maybe with other kernels or just the mindset, that is something so beautiful you can teach and show and approach in this project.
So why is circularity important for bioeconomy?
Yeah, so we have, of course, a limitation of resources, and we play with our resources as they seem as they are given, but actually also population is growing, and we have a lot of environmental challenges as well. So circularity is key here, that we foster our wealth, our also health being, because if we do not rethink how we circulate our products, we will also have a lot of impurities, a lot of unsafe materials circulating them. And this biomass idea, or the idea of circular bioeconomy, is also to kind of keep a healthy environment and focus on sustainability and on the future, because we are still in a closed system and we don't have endless resources.
Well, that sparks new ways of thinking about sustainability and resource efficiency. What is the main impact you hope to achieve by the end of the project? How do you see your region's bioeconomy sector being affected by your work in RURBANIVE?
Of course, this valorization idea, like that everyone who got in touch with the project has an understanding for valorizing their leftover products, that this wording of waste has another meaning like chance or innovative product, that you have the ability to think in the position of a bread, of an old one, and rethought how to use it, and to have overall a shift in the focus of us in how we use our resources, that we did more likely as we would treat also ourselves like with more respect, and also understand the beauty of what it is, its compounds out, and get more interested in synergies and not being just in a closed linear system, open it up and try to be as circular as possible.
And I think that concludes today's exploration of circular bioeconomy with Christine Bertl from alchemia-nova. Christine, thank you for illustrating how innovation can truly close the loop on waste.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'm also excited for the project, and I love the podcast here.
It was a pleasure to have you here. To everyone tuning in, make sure to subscribe and follow for more stories from the heart of RURBANIVE. And until next time, keep finding the value in every resource.